For weeks, the murmurs had been building in Los Angeles, and every household associated with the Forresters, Logans, and Spencers was vibrating with stress. A pregnancy was on the way, and no one could avoid the repercussions. In September, the truth would ultimately be revealed. What made it even more appealing was not simply the prospect of new life, but the secrets, lies, betrayals, and fragile dreams that surrounded it. The bold and the beautiful relied on surprises, and this narrative was bound to rock every family to its core. The first signals started with minor adjustments. Hope Logan had been suffering with emotions she couldn't fully express. She had told herself that she was only under pressure from her continual marital problems, her push and pull with Thomas, her guilt over Liam, and the incessant demands placed on her as a Logan lady. However, something in her body had moved. She initially dismissed it, keeping the prospect of having another kid hidden even from herself. She wasn't ready to accept that minor changes could be indicators of something far larger. Hope had experienced her own emotional roller coaster. For so long, her marriage to Liam Spencer had been rocky, with trust concerns, disagreements, and the ever-present ghost of Steffi. Even when they tried to reunite their family for Beth's sake, nothing seemed to stick. Hope had turned to Thomas Forrester in times of weakness. Their relationship had escalated from a simmering tension to a fire she couldn't put out, no matter how many warnings her family gave her. Brooke implored her to stay away. Ridge offered Thomas hesitant support, and Douglas exacerbated issues by publicly advocating for his parents' reunion. When Hope's world began to tilt out of balance again, she didn't instantly associate it with the prospect of pregnancy. She assumed it was just stress. But every soap opera watcher knows that when a lady tries to explain away her symptoms, it typically signifies a shocking revelation. By early September, Brooke was the first to notice. Brooke was watching her daughter more closely than ever before, and she noticed the tiny signs, the way Hope appeared lightheaded, the time she excused herself from gatherings, and the touch of her palm to her stomach as if instinctively protective. Brooke, who had experienced decades of scandals and surprises, was well aware of what she was witnessing. Nonetheless, she did not want to press too hard. She asked Hope hesitantly if there was anything going on. Hope disputed it, saying she was simply weary. But Brooke was unconvinced. Meanwhile, Thomas harbored his own misgivings. His relationship with Hope had grown unmistakable, albeit veiled in mystery and controversy. He noted her mood swings, the hesitancy in her eyes when he suggested their future, and how she avoided in-depth discussions about where they were going. Thomas had changed, or so he claimed. He tried to be patient and let Hope come to him with whatever she was keeping back. But patience was never Thomas's strong suit, so he began to press her more and more. Hope felt herself in conflict with her conscience. If she was pregnant, the issue of paternity was not as straightforward as it should have been. Her relationship with Liam had not ended neatly. Even though they had grown apart, there were nights when they found themselves drawn back into old routines, especially when emotions were strong. Hope was scared of what a positive test may indicate because the lines between Liam and Thomas were so blurred. One man represented security in principle but heartbreak in practice, whereas the other represented passion and devotion, but bore the shadow of a troubled past. As the month progressed, the moment of truth arrived. Hope was alone in her bedroom, staring at the test in her palm. The minutes felt like hours, and her heart pounded as she begged for clarity. When the results appeared, her breath caught. Pregnant. The word appeared to burst from the test like a brand, permanently marking her future. Her eyes welled up with tears as a torrent of emotions swept in, fear, joy, regret, and perplexity. She knew her life was about to change again, and she had no idea how to handle the consequences. In Los Angeles, however, secrets are seldom kept hidden for long. Hope figured she could keep it hidden for a time, at least until she digested it herself. That illusion crumbled immediately. Brooke, knowing the truth, questioned her again, and this time Hope was unable to lie. The disclosure devastated Brooke's heart, not because of the pregnancy, but because of the uncertainty around it. She wanted to protect her daughter, but she knew things were going to get unpleasant. And in typical Brooke form, she quickly shifted her attention to who the father might be. The tension rose when Liam, who was already dubious of Hope's continued closeness with Thomas, began asking questions. He noted how she avoided talks and intimacy, and how she appeared preoccupied whenever Thomas's name came up. Liam had been betrayed before, and his instincts told him history was repeating itself. When he overheard Brooke and Hope discussing the pregnancy, his world spun on its axis. He confronted Hope, demanding explanations, but she froze. Her silence spoke more than words. Word spread quickly, and Thomas soon found out. His reaction was exactly what the audience expected and more. He burst out laughing, his thoughts racing with visions of a future in which he, Hope, and their child might finally be a true family. For Thomas, this was a chance at redemption, confirmation that his love for Hope was more than an obsession. It was destiny. He raced to her side, giving his support and vowed to be there no matter what. But his excitement just widened the schism between Hope and Liam, leaving her torn apart. As September progressed, the expectant woman's identity became publicly known. It was Hope Logan, and the revelation sent shockwaves through every home. The Forresters divided quickly. Ridge warily cheered the prospect of new life, taking it as a sign that Thomas's development could be genuine. However, Steffi was not convinced. She felt her brother's obsession with Hope was rekindling, and having a kid would only bind him closer to her. Steffi cautioned Hope to think carefully about what kind of father Thomas was, citing his history of deception. Brooke, on the Logan side, struggled with guilt and frustration. She wanted to encourage her daughter, but she couldn't get rid of her concerns. Donna and Katie attempted to mobilize support for Hope, but even they realized that this would be a scandal from which the family would not simply recover. Liam's wrath grew, and he drew a hard line. He informed Hope that if the child was not his, he would leave away permanently. The ultimatum crushed her, leaving her torn between devotion and passion. Each interaction got charged. Hope and Thomas's moments together were filled with sweetness and foreboding dread, while Liam's clashes became sharper and more frantic. The issue of paternity hovered in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to demolish any relationship in its path. Even though the truth would finally be revealed through a DNA test, the emotional toll had already begun. By the end of September, the stage was prepared for a massive fallout. Hope's pregnancy was more than just a new baby. It was about loyalty, treachery, legacy, and the never-ending conflict between Logans, Forresters, and Spencers. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone stood to lose. The woman at the core of it all could no longer hide. The pregnant woman's name had been revealed, and now the plot lines of each household would revolve around her decisions. What anyone recognized was that this was only the beginning. The bold and the beautiful never stopped with a single twist. The pregnancy reveal was only the beginning. The main fire was yet to arrive. The story spread like wildfire throughout Los Angeles, and when the pregnant woman's identity was revealed as Hope Logan, the ripples couldn't be stopped. It wasn't only that Hope was carrying a kid. The child's father could be either Thomas Forrester or Liam Spencer. That single fact transformed every conversation, dinner, and family gathering into a war. Hope felt the weight of eyes following her wherever she went. Going into Forrester Creations became awful. Whispers filled the corridors. When she walked in, designers, models, and crew all paused in their conversations, their interest barely concealed. Was this Thomas's baby? Was this Liam's? Could she ever avoid the scrutiny? Thomas, on the other hand, relished the attention. For years, he sought credibility in Hope's eyes. Now he took the pregnancy as a sign that they were meant to be together. He envisaged proposing to her again, and their child growing up in a home full of love, laughing, and design ideas all over the living room. He assured Ridge that this was his chance to prove he was not the man everyone accused him of being. Ridge, cautiously hopeful, wished to trust his son, but a small part of him couldn't dismiss Steffi's warnings. Steffi refused to be silent. She could not see her brother walk blindly into tragedy, no matter how protective she felt of him. She confronted Hope, her voice fierce and unforgiving. Hope attempted to remain cool, stating that she had not made any decisions yet, but Steffi persisted. She reminded Hope of every manipulative trick Thomas had ever performed, every time his devotion had harmed her. "Do you really want to raise a child in the middle of that?" Steffi demanded. The confrontation ended in tears, with Hope fleeing out of the office and Steffi shaking her head in anger. Liam fared no better. His tolerance had run out, and his heart became harder with each passing day. When he found out about the pregnancy, He became angry and disbelieving. He faced Hope in their cabin, his words harsh. He accused her of betraying him again, of hurting his family, and of prioritizing passion over stability. Hope attempted to defend herself, reminding Liam of his past betrayals with Steffi, but he refused to listen. His voice broke as he told her he couldn't live like this anymore, not knowing if the kid was his. As emotions increased, the inevitable next step occurred. A paternity test. Hope was dreading it, but she knew it was unavoidable. Thomas and Liam both demanded answers, and Brooke also pushed for clarity. She wanted to safeguard her daughter from years of uncertainty, and she believed that only science could calm the storm. The test was conducted quietly, but nothing in our world stays quiet for long. Enter Sheila Carter. Sheila had been skirting the outskirts of everyone's life, waiting for the right moment to reintroduce herself into the mayhem. When she learned about Hope's pregnancy, her warped mind began plotting. She saw the infant as leverage, a method to break apart families and reclaim power. If she could change the test results, she could put Liam against Thomas, Brooke against Ridge, and Hope against everyone. Nothing excites Sheila more than seeing families fall apart. Sheila gained access to the lab, where the results were processed through bribes and threats. She moved quickly, transferring files and modifying documents to ensure that the results did not accurately reflect the reality. It didn't matter if Thomas or Liam was the genuine father. Sheila had selected what the world would see. When the results came back, the bomb went off. The father was identified as Thomas Forrester. The room became hushed as the paper was read aloud. Hope's breath seized in her throat, and tears streamed down her face. Thomas's face lit up with happiness, as Liam's world crumbled. The test appeared to confirm what he had suspected, and in his wrath and despair, he walked out on Hope, slamming the door behind him. However, for the audience, the stress only increased. The truth was out there, twisted by Sheila's hand, and now every connection would take a new turn. Thomas took his new responsibility with pride. He lavished Hope with affection and promised to take care of her, the baby, and Beth. He promised her she would never have to worry again, and that he would create the ideal family for them. His intensity was intense, and while Hope longed for security, she also felt trapped. Could she really create a life with Thomas? Or was she merely accepting a future she hadn't chosen? Liam, devastated, became bitter. He notified Wyatt and Bill about the outcome, and both men attempted to counsel him. Bill, ever cynical, told Liam that Thomas would never change, and that Hope would eventually see the truth. Wyatt, more empathetic, pushed Liam not to give up completely, but Liam refused to hear. He declared that if the baby was not his, neither was Hope's future with him. He determined to go on, but his heart ached. Meanwhile, Steffi addressed her father. "This is going to end in disaster," she told Ridge. "Hope is blinded, Thomas is obsessed, and Liam is broken. You must act before this child grows up in chaos." Ridge tried to soothe her, but deep down he suspected she was correct. He wanted to think his son had finally changed, but questions plagued him. As the weeks passed, Hope's pregnancy became the topic of every conversation. Baby names were murmured, nursery preparations were discussed, but the underlying tension never subsided. Hope felt the walls closing in on her, and late at night, she placed her hands on her stomach and apologized to the unborn child. She did not want this baby to be born into a world full of lies. Sheila continued to observe. She smirked from the shadows, satisfied with the devastation she had caused. But as is customary in soap operas, secrets eventually emerge. An unwary nurse discovered anomalies in the lab reports, data that did not line up. Despite her hesitation to speak up, the truth began to shine through the lies. By the end of September, the stage was set for a far larger explosion. Hope's pregnancy was real. Thomas thought he was the father. Liam was devastated, and Sheila's manipulation was about to be exposed. Every family was bracing for the consequences, and when the truth was revealed, when everyone realized what Sheila had done, the aftermath would be disastrous. Hope knew one thing for certain. Regardless of who the father was, her child deserved better than this never-ending conflict. Nonetheless, in Los Angeles, tranquility was always but a dream. The storm had hardly begun.